Hi, my name is Sam Johnson.
And I'm Vanessa Vega.
And we are voice teachers. If you're interested in signing up for voice lessons with either of us, go to our website, vocalease.net. Today we're going to be reacting to and analyzing Yebba in her Tiny Desk home concert performing the song Distance. There's that closed A. Notice how little she's opening her mouth so far?
Yeah.
Do you find that people tend to open their mouths when they sing?
I find they don't, and I wish they would, usually.
She seems to be getting away with it. It's nothing above like a G so far. And when you're in this area, you really don't need to do much. I think a lot of people tend to over-open in this area and under-open right above it.
I agree. Yeah. It's really, once it gets anywhere past that G, that we want it to start opening. So We'll see what happens.
Oh yeah, late night cooking in the kitchen. Dirty dancing in my room, and sending my love all over you.
What do you think about triplets?
Triplets are great.
Triplets are great. It's that da-da-da-da-da-da, and it's like my favorite rhythmic thing, just because it sounds really cool. What's your favorite use of triplets?
Favorite use of triplets. What a stellar question.
I'm a really good interviewer.
So I've heard. Probably one lolly, two lolly.
Oh yeah, that's a classic.
Yeah.
Classic. For those who haven't heard it, can you sing a little example of one lolly, two lolly?
One lolly, two lolly, three lolly, four lolly.
Ooh, I also like blueberry. So we're like blueberry apple.
Oh, doable.
Yeah, you got to go back and forth. That's the real way to do it. So she's got some really interesting rhythmic things going on so far. Are you noticing anything else that you're liking?
I guess to the actual singing, it seems like she knows her voice really well, which is sort of key to being able to add in those stylistic elements. It's like a lot of people, I think, want to start with that because they want to imitate a sound, but it's really important to figure out what works best for you and add those stylistic things on top of it, and I can tell that's what she's doing, so I trust her.
Agreed, 100%. Also, those background singers, very tight. Very tight.
Yeah.
Because of the time we shared, time we lost in love with one another.
There's them triplets.
Days we had, pay the cost of losing hearts desiring so very soon, I'll be sending my love all over you.
She's also leaving so much room dynamically to grow. Like, it feels like she's just using a lot of restraint. She's not projecting. So a lot of times people are obsessed with projection, and I think it matters sometimes, but not with this style of music, not really.
Yeah, I mean, what I really love is even in sort of the chosen breathier moments, she still has core to her voice. And I think her sound is consistent. Nowhere am I like, oh, there's a totally different singer singing this part and this part. It all sounds like her, and you can tell that everything is just kind of streaming out of a nice focused place for her.
It's kind of a fine line finding, like, yes, these are different colors, these are different parts of the voice that all work versus just sounding totally different because the voice isn't like together, isn't really well techniqued. And with her, it's definitely on the side of this is a well-techniqued person who is choosing to go into a breathy place or choosing to go into a headier place, sometimes a little bit more correlated. Yeah.
And then to clarify, just place how I mean it in this, because it's a tricky word.
Placement's weird. You ask everyone,
yeah,
and everyone will have a different answer.
Yeah, and so to me, it's just place is movable. Place is a sensation. And so it's following just the good sensations that give you the most comfortable, relaxed feeling in your body. And I feel like she's following that.
I think that's an interesting clarification because I think a lot of times when people use placement, it's like, okay, place it behind the mask or place it here or place it here or whatever. And for most people, that makes no sense.
Yeah.
Because, like, how are you supposed to know what it feels like when I'm saying these things? And I know that with these videos, I do a lot of like, oh, I kind of feel it like this or I feel it like this. But that's just my own sensations. And it's likely that she will not feel those exact same sensations that we feel like empathetically watching her.
Yeah.
And so I think that's a thing a lot of teachers really need to work on. Using the word placement in ways that don't wreck your students and make them feel like they have no idea what's going on, because that sure has happened to me before.
Yeah, it's definitely subjective.
Yeah.
Oh, I still get so lost in the feeling.
So like right there, she started in that really high, headier kind of place with a little bit more of the air sound. And then when she blended down into a more modal voice, it still sounded like the same voice. It wasn't like, oh, lost in the feeling, and have just this huge shift, which I think is more common.
Yeah, exactly. It was, you could tell that she was setting herself up to go down by engaging the way she needed to and keeping it as she went down.
And a lot of times when people go through that kind of a thing, when they come into the more modal voice, into the more spoken kind of voice, it has so much more pressure than that higher stuff that immediately there's this big shift in sound. Yeah. And so with her, she was able to let her vocal folds do one thing while her air did another, which is just staying fairly consistent.
Yes, because you can start it with and just add the breath into that already found place.
What would the alternative be? Yeah, and it's just less connected. It sounds like she let go on that second one.
And it makes a huge difference.
I can't imagine. Losing you, baby.
So that can't, and what I said about that closed A earlier, it's one of my favorite vowel modifications. Because if someone goes can't, I can't stand it. I can't stand it. It's like more of that A. Everything just feels more gathered, and it makes singing a lot easier most of the time to go to that A versus an ah.
It's a can't stand it household here.
Yes.
If your heart could find a new reason for someone special to hold on to, I wonder if I would do, yeah, because of the time we lost in love with one another days.
I know you're usually the pause person here.
Go for
I don't know
it.
if this has ever happened, but when she goes up to that time we share, what I love is she's not overblowing it.
Mm-hmm.
It all still sounds like it's in this nice, easy line, and that takes way more skill than I think a lot of people realize.
I also hear like a little bit of this almost nasality, which is assisting her in getting that, but it's also just the tone that she's getting. Like you could get it without the nasality, but I like playing with nasality for being able to make that kind of jump without blowing too much or pressing too much into it.
Yeah, I generally find, and I think most of my students generally find, that most of the sensation that is that buzzy, comfortable feeling happens usually somewhere from here forward.
A lot of people notice that, for sure.
And so I think it's hard because once we like a sensation that usually happens around here, sometimes it's a fine line when it sneaks a little bit more into the nose versus back.
But that's another place where just that placement idea can really sabotage people, because if we're asking for a masky placement, people will avoid nasality but want maskiness, and it just gets really confusing. With her, it didn't sound like she was like pushing it there. It just sounded like there was a little bit of this slight kind of quality, this like Frenchness that for me it's more just a style choice rather than like you have to do that to sing in that area.
Yeah.
Do you want to unpause it?
Oh, I see. The pauser replays.
So take me back to the distance. Oh yeah, late night cooking in the kitchen. Oh yeah.
Okay. When she did kitchen, did you see her mouth?
Not much. I was paying more attention to like how performative she's being, but like casual. Like she's definitely telling the story, but she's not like, hey.
Yeah.
What was her mouth doing?
So I just noticed as she was going up, her mouth just opened slightly more as it needed to on each note. That is the cherry on top for me of this easy feeling, is it's letting your body do what it needs to get the notes out. I tell people all the time, your body knows what it needs to do to get certain notes out or to feel more relaxed, and it's just getting out of your way. And so I feel like she's getting out of her way so that way she can keep that sound really consistent. And
yeah,
I loved it.
Vowels need to be flexible so like this whole aperture needs to be able to move around, and she let that happen. She let it be the amount of space the first note needed and then the amount of space the second needed. And you don't figure that out until you've just played a lot.
Yeah.
And so I think a lot of what we do with voice lessons is just give you things to play with. It's like, play around with these sounds, see what you notice. But most of what I ask, I say, what did you notice? How did that feel? After pretty much everything I do.
Love
Because
that.
when people, if you like set up an experiment, do this sound or whatever, and then what did you notice? Oh, I noticed that this got a little tense at this part. Okay, try it this other way. Did you notice that same thing? No. And people will figure a lot of this stuff out on their own. And that's why I think videos like what we're doing are useful, because I think that you can figure out how to do a lot of this stuff on your own. Still sign up for lessons with us, but really, like, the more that you learn how to just read your body, it will tell you when things are working and when they're not. And to be able to be as precise with your vowel modifications as what Yeba did, you just need a lot of experience. You just need so much familiarity. And the only way through that is getting that experience.
Mm-hmm. Oh no.
Dirty dancing in my room. I love the things you do, and I'm sending all of my love to you.
Yeah, a little bit of distortion on those top notes. Just la, la. I can't do it right now. Thank you, body. But yeah, just a little bit of that kind of sound. So letting the vocal fry come in, but while keeping the good vowels, so it still sounds like her voice. It just sounds a little dirty, but like that's not damaged voice. What I just did was more like, I can't sing because I've been sick for 2 weeks. But
yeah, and it also, you can hear, because of the consistency in what she sings around the distortion, that it's still all springing from that beautifully focused place. For her.
Which is the vowel shaping. It's like
Yeah.
everything that happens here up, where the distortion happens like just right above the folds.
And you can tell, I tell people all the time it really helps to breathe in your vowels.
That's a good phrase.
It helps you set up that, okay, like, how is everything going to start opening up by the time I start singing it? And I felt like some of that was going on, and it set her up for success.
Singing well.
I'll be sending my love all over. I'll be sending all my love all over. I'll be sending all my love all over.
With those high send-ins, she wasn't saying sending all. It was more of that sending all, which is that same thing I'm talking about. That can't stand that going to the ear. It's really, really great. But that's more of a tongue thing, because her mouth is still quite open. Send, that's going up to the C. High enough that you need to actually open your mouth a little bit.
Yeah, and people don't realize that there's such a small change in the tongue movement from an E to an I can go,
Yeah.
which I think is a great exercise for people to try, is just how can you go between vowels and just try and move your tongue and see those small movements. And chances are, if you're singing a line and you're getting stuck somewhere, try and see how you can keep the line take almost the same shape all the way through.
Well, there's
it.
probably some place you're moving too much. And
Yeah.
getting out of your own way includes that. I mean, a lot of problems with singing that people run into is us trying to make it a thing, trying to help the sound in some way. And doing those little movements like that is just like, oh, this feels good. Why change it too much? Just find the smallest change that you can while maintaining what already feels good to you.
Yeah, for sure.
I'll be sending all my, sending all my, sending all my, sending my love all over you.
She's really good.
Sending my love all over you. Sending my love all over you.
Nice. So with that one, she does ask for a slightly like hootier up at the top, and as she comes back down, it becomes less hooty, a little more kind of sound. Because if we kept going down, it would start sounding a little too opera-y.
Mm-hmm. But even still, I would say there was still, you could hear how it connected to everything
Oh
else.
yeah, I mean, there's core to it. It's not just all air. So
Yeah.
there's a similar amount of resistance at the vocal folds. That's kind of what we mean by core, where if there's no resistance, if there's very little resistance, they're not staying together very much. It sounds breathy. We lose this kind of pingy core sound.
All over you, yeah. Sending my love all over you, over you, over. Sending my love all over you, over you, over.
Nice ending with that That's a very uncommon thing. People usually don't like lean into an sound, and I heard her do it a few times with this. It's, again, when you are this good of a singer, it is purposeful. It's like, this sound is different and I like the sound, I'm gonna go for it. But you don't figure out what sounds work for you and feel good, and you might want to only use twice in a song until you've just played around with everything. What did you like? What was your favorite thing?
I think my favorite part was I really liked the way that she just allowed herself to extend in those areas and be really fluid and just like know when to just kind of relax her mouth open and closed. But I mean, those runs.
Yeah, the runs are just killer good. She is
Yeah.
so good at runs. Runs, as someone who's had a lot of like classical background, what do you think is in common with kind of runs in pop, R&B versus more classical music?
Oh, there's a ton in common. So in classical music, there's all sorts of ornamentation that you do in pieces and a lot of different runs. And it's knowing that there are certain runs where you have to have a little bit more control. Like in Handel, I'm probably going to do a run a little bit differently than I would do in like a Donizetti or Bellini.
What changes?
It's that idea of, and she does it, it's ones where you have a little bit more
Almost like re-articulating the H between each of them.
Yeah, and you have just that little bit of, and some people do the H, some people don't. There's not really a right or wrong way there, but it's a lot of just keeping everything really buoyant. And then, especially on the climbing ones, you want to stay really buoyant and kind of have a re-articulation. But if you're going down on a run, like, then that's a lot more release that you need to do. And it still requires that buoyancy of the air, but there's a lot more of a release rather than engagement. And it's tricky because if you release too much and you're not maintaining that sort of buzzy feeling you feel at the top as you go down, then it's just going to fall. And you're going to get something like,
Yeah, just because it has such a big change from that higher...
Yeah.
Not registered, just like the higher coordination that you need to, when you go to the bottom, it always wants to add more pressure, and that's kind of what that sounded like. Yeah.
And so
And so I guess that using that extra H on the way up would help with thinning out a little bit as you go up.
yeah, and
rather
as
than
you
holding on too much.
re-articulate, it helps you to kind of keep adjusting, like how she did. If I am going, you know,
Just
or,
little
yeah,
changes all the way
yeah.
through.
And
Yeah.
that was an exaggeration.
Oh, for
but
sure.
yeah, if as you're going up, you know, there's that fluidity of yet restraint, and then on the way down, it's the fluidity while maintaining sort of that higher core to the sound.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Vanessa's sung a lot. You know what works really well in your voice.
Yeah.
And,
There's a lot of words there, but
with all of this stuff, like, there is no right way to describe what you notice in your body as you're singing. All of these things that we're saying are just like kind of what we notice or questions that we've asked to get to those places. But ultimately, you do have to just figure out, this is what makes sense to me. This is how I would describe it for my own use.
Because everything's gonna feel different. So even my explanation of it may not register to some people, and that's literally why we teach lessons.
And it's not wrong to. I think that's the key, because a lot of people, I think, when they don't understand what their teacher or what someone else is saying, they will take it on themselves as, I'm doing something wrong because I'm not feeling it this way or whatever. And that's just not the truth.
I think we both always tell students, if what I said didn't make any sense, tell me. Or if you have a question at any time, just ask. And 99% of the time, we can at least help to get through whatever needs to be gotten through.
For sure. Thank you for watching. Please like, subscribe, leave a comment below. Go check out our website, vocalease.net, and sign up for every open slot so that we have no open slots. And thank you again.